Welcome back, everybody, to the third video of the Misplaced recordings. This time I am doing round 7 of my MOCs final event from the Swiss. I'm going to be reviewing each match of the MOCs finals that I played in a couple weeks ago, because I didn't stream the Swiss, but I did stream the top 8. I will be reviewing every match, though, even though I streamed the top 8. Also, the reviews don't show my sideboarding, so I will be going over my sideboard notes for Game 2 of each match and talking about the archetype that I'm up against, why I specifically sideboard everything in, and different reasons why I think my opponent will be sideboarding something in. I also will be leaving the sideboarding in the comments of each video, so if I miss something or you miss something, just check the comments. It'll be there so you can write it down or review it later without having to go back to the video. Anyways, we're going to start with round 7. I'm on the play. It's game 1. I don't know what my opponent's playing, and this hand's perfect. Wildgrowth Walker is great against any aggro matchup. It's also really good for playing Who's the Beatdown. I have a decent removal spell, and I have cards to really push me over the card advantage line by drawing more lands for the later game and also gaining me a bunch of life. This is really problematic for me, that they lead with Llanowar Elves and play a second Llanowar Elves. One of the reasons why you like being on the play in Magic is you have a mana advantage, so you can cast more powerful spells early. If your opponent is on the draw, that means they have an extra card. If they can exchange that card for an extra mana, then you sort of have parity, but the person on the draw is sort of like a little bit up because they can play the same power level spells or higher earlier than you, and they get to draw an extra card. So them having Llanowar Elves and second Llanowar Elves means that if they have anything to go over the top, they can probably cast it earlier than I can, and it's more likely they do so because they've seen more cards than I have. So this is pretty problematic for me, simply because if they play Vivien or Carnage Tyrant early, I'm kind of far behind. And I have to preemptively try to beat that, although sometimes you just can't really play around it. So at this point, I have to hope to try to hit a land and hope to not see one of those cards. I have an answer for Vivien, but it's not the best answer, and I'm missing lands. So actually what happens here is I draw a Llanowar Elves, which is just worse than a land. I think I play this, miss on land, and pass back. Yep, they play Jadelight, they reveal Vivien, make this a 4/3. They have a forest that they revealed off this the turn before. And I miss on land again, drawing my own Vivien. Now, the line here is, because I know the Vivien's coming down next turn, is to play Merfolk Branchwalker, hope to hit an untapped land, and then play Llanowar Elves. What I end up doing is I end up attacking with my Wildgrowth Walker, which is just very stupid because I cleanly trade it for a Jadelight Ranger when I have 2 Jadelights of my own in hand, where the Wildgrowth can just get bigger than any of their creatures. This is a pretty big issue because I just throw away this creature for no reason and really diminish my board state when I know my opponent will be advancing theirs with their Vivien the following turn. I just wasn't thinking straight, if I'm being honest, and I just made a sloppy play. I luckily don't really get punished for it. They find a Wildgrowth Walker, and I have an answer to their Vivien. To me, that's really good for me. They also follow up with double Wildgrowth Walker and no Explore creature. So if they had an Explore creature, they definitely would have cast it here. If they had anything that was better than 2 Wildgrowths on turn 6 or 7, whatever turn it is, they also would have cast it. So to me, this means that they're not playing around Finality. They don't have an Explore creature. They don't have a Carnage Tyrant. They don't have another Vivien. So that means they probably have a bunch of removal that they don't want to cast right now. So that includes Vraska's Contempt, Trophy, or maybe an Eldest Reborn or two or something, right? So I know Carnage Tyrant's on top of my library because of this Jadelight Ranger. So I could play Carnage Tyrant and just sort of pressure them. Or I can put Vivien into play, force them to use their Vraska's Contempt if they have it, and try to get a card off of it. I end up putting the Vivien into play and finding a Chupacabra, but I think in hindsight I should have just put the Carnage Tyrant into play and see if they contempted a Jadelight Ranger or something. Because I think that's just the better line. If they don't have the Contempt, I can always just cast Vivien next turn, and if they are waiting for specifically Vivien, that's fine. Like, I'm not too concerned with that. I do get a bit rewarded because I do find Chupacabra, which is an answer to these Wildgrowth Walkers if they have an Explore creature, but I still think the line is kind of loose. Yeah. So, they don't do anything. I didn't block here because I think they have Find Finality. They're not going to Finality their own board. And if they find Finality back Jadelight Ranger and Branchwalker, they just gain so much life, it's going to be really hard to win. These things also get big enough to block this well. Although I do have the Chupacabra to kill one of them, they're still, like, with their life total, they still have, like, sort of a flex on what they get to do. So, draw Swamp, play, yep, just do this for a couple turns. Play this, reveal, Contempt. A couple turns have gone by and they still haven't really done anything, and they are at 1. So if they do a Find Finality, I assume they would cast it even on this turn, just to gain 12 life. Although I do have Chupacabra with Contempt on top of my library, I'm pretty sure they're dead anyways, but I assume they would do that, and they just scoop. So, game 2. So for sideboarding, I shave 1 Seekers Squire, 1 Doom Whisperer, and I think 1 Merfolk Branchwalker. I don't remember if it's Branchwalker or Wildgrowth Walker. The reason I only shave 1 Doom Whisperer is because I really like Doom Whisperer as a threat. And if you're leaving in Wildgrowth Walkers, I think Doom Whisperer plus Wildgrowth Walker is a really good engine that helps you in almost any matchup find what you're looking for. Speaking of which, here is a Doom Whisperer. This hand's good. I have a 2-drop. I have a 3-drop, which is very powerful in the matchup. I have a 5-drop, which is okay in the matchup, and then I have one of the better cards in the matchup in Carnage Tyrant. All I need to do is hopefully just draw Explore creatures or Llanowar Elves to really accelerate the on-the-draw issue that I was talking about earlier. And if I hit Explore creatures and draw lands off the Explorers, we're in a really good position, specifically if I can exchange those cards for other cards with Midnight Reaper for blocking. This is pretty bad for me. They have a mana advantage on turn 2. I think, yeah, I draw Contempt. So this is an answer to a Planeswalker or their own Midnight Reaper. This is really good for me, but also really bad for me. It means that they have 5 spells in their hand, but they're really short on mana. So if I find a way to deal with these Llanowar Elves, I'm pretty far ahead. Unfortunately, I only have 1 cast down, and Assassin's Trophy isn't really going to do that, and this is just way too slow. I'm hoping that whatever cards they have aren't good enough, unfortunately they are, to push them from this mana disadvantage that they have to over the top like it would in most matchups. And they go runner, land, play a really good one into Vivien, and then find Carnage Tyrant. I play land, contempt that, and then I think they just attack, yeah, and they hit another land. So we're kind of far behind at this point. I have second Vivien. I played this so I could find something to cast. Of course, they have a Chupacabra and a Wildgrowth Walker to follow it up, which makes for a pretty good attack. I do have this to go back up to 19 if I want, or I can just play this. The unfortunate part about playing this is if I block here, they get an extra card off of it, and I still take a bunch of damage. They have a removal spell for this on 2 cards. We're sort of also in a problem in that I have no other life gain engine, and I can't play 2 spells a turn. So I'm sort of like stuck in this area where I have to choose what spell to play, hope to play around something, and hope I don't die because of it. So, yeah, I play that. I think they just shove with everything. I would shove with everything. Yep. Play a second one after I go block. Just try to keep up on cards. I draw another Wildgrowth Walker, which is nice. It pads my life total and gives me probably another turn to live. They have a lot of lands in their library, so them drawing cards isn't always that bad, because it could just be lands because they didn't have a lot of lands early in the game. They did find second Vivien, though, which is sort of reasonable considering they've been drawing cards off Midnight Reaper, and they just don't attack. It invalidates this, and it makes this play worse because they have a bigger board than I do. They get to grow these if they want to, and I'm playing this second, so it has a lower loyalty. Yep, and as we see, I find land, play Branchwalker, but I'm still just very far behind on board. They find second Carnage Tyrant. I'm forced to sort of double block, although they to gain life, they draw a card, they contempt my Vivien, and now I'm just very far behind. This is on 7, they have 5 cards. My board is not smaller than theirs, but getting smaller. And yeah, I'm breaking pretty hard. They actually just straight up contempt this and don't even worry about down taking Vivien. And at this point, the game is just pretty like elementary, I guess. Like I drew an Assassin's Trophy the final turn I needed to off that Vivien, but I think I was losing anyways because I had a Midnight Reaper in play. Or is that theirs? Yeah, so because I had a Midnight Reaper in play, I actually lose to the board. I couldn't find Finality anything away. They just ended up having too many resources for me to deal with. And, yeah. Game 3, I'm on the play. His hand's good, but it's a little suspect. Has a 2-drop, which is nice. Has a answer for their Planeswalkers, and has a Find Finality, which is a late game card advantage engine, or just straight up like a 2 or 3 for 1. So I can't really think about mulliganing this. They're on 7 cards. Of course, they have turn 1 elf, which is good for them. I play this and I reveal a land. I could have played this to really sort of also have mana advantage, but because I don't really see anything I'm trying to cast right now, I think trying to play this or playing this is looser than playing this. I did reveal a land, so it's like drawing a card, and I can always just play this the following turn, which is what I end up doing. At this point, I'm like not really behind, but I have drawn quite a couple lands. This is my land, so they played this. They shoot my elf. What turn is this? It's turn 4, and I went first. So they shoot my elf and are playing things above curve. So if they play Vivien next turn, I'm in a bit of trouble. So I draw Vraska's Contempt. I can contempt this elf and put them off Vivien, or I can just contempt the Vivien. Although if they draw a card off Vivien, I'm sort of far behind. If they do miss on 4th land, it's more advantageous for me to contempt the elf. That way they also can't play their 4-drops. And I want to try to be proactive. So I just don't do anything. They don't do anything, which is so great for me with them having 5 cards in hand. To me, that either means that they have a bunch of removal spells or they have a bunch of Carnage Tyrants. So if they have a bunch of Carnage Tyrants, I want to make sure that I'm killing this elf as soon as possible. That way I can sort of like get out from underneath it and try my hardest to not just straight up die to it. So I actually should have contempted this, noticing this after combat, simply recognizing that. And then drawing this sort of puts me a little bit behind also, because if they have Contempt Carnage Tyrant, I'm in a really big issue. in the fact that they can contempt my Vivien Reid, untap, play Carnage Tyrant, and they have 10 damage on board with me at 13, and I'm basically dead. So I can contempt this Llanowar Elf, hope they don't have follow-up, but if they have contempt Carnage Tyrant, and I contempt the Llanowar Elf now, I'm in the same position, but next turn. So I think it's in my best interest to just tick up this Vivien, hope they don't have contempt, and go for it. I end up contempting the Elf, which now seems a little loose because I'm just in the same position this turn. But that's fine. Play Vivien, and they just straight up don't have contempt. So I didn't need to play around it. It's really lucky for me not to have it. That means they either have like a bunch of Carnage Tyrants in their hand, or they have literal nothing, and they're trying to play around Finality or something. I don't know. To me, I would assume it's a bunch of Carnage Tyrants or nothing. They just attack. Yeah, they don't even have Carnage Tyrant. So I assume their 5 cards is literal. Like, I don't know what, it would have to be like cast downs or like Chupacabras and stuff. Like, I don't know what it would be on 5. At this point, I just run away with the game. They did have a cast down for the Wildgrowth Walker, which makes sense. They do have a Chupacabra and a Memorial of Folly. So it's sort of adding up now. They have a bunch of creature spot removal, but nothing to deal with my Planeswalker. And I get to just start like gaining advantage with these Midnight Reapers. My Vivian's at 2. They find Finality back some creatures, but like I can find Finality them, and I still have a Vivien. I know they don't have a removal spell for it. So I think it's actually, like, I think I tick up and then just play one of these Tyrants and say, show me. If they have an Eldest Reborn, I can just trophy one of these, or trophy the Eldest Reborn even, and I still have Tyrant find Finality, right? But they also haven't been casting Eldest Reborn up to this point. So I'm just like so far ahead. Yeah, just play other Tyrant, play this, and the game's over. If they attack my Vivien, I just say no blocks, contempt their blocker, and the game's just over. That worked out very well for me. I think all my cards lined up very well, and I got pretty lucky in that regard. Round 8. Round 8 is where I took my first loss. It once again is the Mirror. DD fan. They also made top 8. And one of the reasons I lost is because I think I got a little unlucky. Although I did get fairly lucky in almost every other round up to this one. So I can't really complain. Although as you see, I mulled to 6. And I keep an okay one. That's a good card on top. They have Elf on turn 1. And this game plays out like sort of how it looks. They just play threats and kill my stuff. They have a mana advantage. I gain some life. Find a Carnage Tyrant eventually. This attack for them was kind of weird. I don't know why they would make this attack here. I'm just never blocking if they attack with everything plus, or if they attack with everything minus Midnight Reaper. But I think that means they're looking for land, although I'm not entirely sure, because that card is just very important in the matchup. So I jam this, and they cast down it. I find a land, so I can play this Carnage Tyrant, and so the reason I didn't block there is because I'm playing around Find Finality. To me, that's the only reason why they would attack there. And they just find Finality back to this, and I think something else. So at this point in the game, I've drawn the best possible card I can draw, and it's Find Finality. The reason this is the best is because I can sort of get 2 cards back from my graveyard if I want to, or I can Wrath their board and make my Carnage Tyrant a 9x. The reason why Wrathing their board might be not great is because they have Wildgrowth Walkers in their library, and they can gain life back. Although if they miss on Wildgrowth Walker, gain life creature, we're in a really good position. So the line here is actually attack with Carnage Tyrant. I assume they won't block and go to 10. I find Finality their board. They lose 4 and go to 6. My Carnage Tyrant is then a 9x. And they are at 6 to my 9x. So I think that's what I do. No, I just wait. I guess I decided that waiting to see if they'll put more creatures into play was better, because they only had one card in hand, and I assumed that, I guess if they only had one card in hand, it would just kind of be nothing. So they attack with everything. I go to 3. I put them to 3, and then I find Finality. The interesting thing here is the last card in their hand was Vraska's Contempt. So putting them to 3 with Midnight Reaper in play is lethal if Midnight Reaper sticks around. What they end up doing is contempting their own Llanowar Elves to go up to 5 and then lose 3, go to 2. They then draw 3 cards and get an extra turn. So they have a couple outs to this, including Wildgrowth Walker plus Jadelight Ranger would be very frustrating, especially since I'm at 3 life. They could also have the Eldest Reborn. But they do brick, and I win this game. Game 2. I think I'm mulligan this one also. This hand's a little suspect. I don't think it's a mulligan, but it's certainly suspect. I have to get a little lucky off the top of my library. Although I do have a very good removal spell and 2 great late game threats, it's very hard to not assume that my opponent's just going to play 2-drop, 3-drop, and just sort of beat me up. That's not really something I can play around, I think, on the draw. I think that's sort of a spot that you're just in on the draw. And I think that's kind of sort of something you have to be okay with. And that's why I'm okay with keeping this hand. As for sideboarding, it's the same thing as last round. Cut a Seekers Squire. I think I cut a Branchwalker or a Wildgrowth Walker. And then I cut 1 Doom Whisperer because I like to keep 1 in as a threat. So we'll just see what happens. They go turn 1 elf and we draw 4. Oh, actually mulligan. Wow. I guess I just past Derek decided that I need to be more aggressive and try not to just lose. And I actually think this 6 is better than our 7, not including this. Did I scry that to the top? I don't know. And I think this is. I think it's 2-drop, good 2-drop, good 3-drop, good removal spell on 4. Of course, they lead with Elf, so I'm like sort of far behind already. They bin to Vivien, which is very promising for me. It means that they don't have lands to cast it. That could also mean they already have Vivien in their hand, and they need lands to cast the Vivien in their hand, but I don't like to assume that, although I think that that is what it means. I also have the answer to the Vivien anyways, so I think we're in an okay position at this point. Drawn some lands, which is fine. Vraska is an interesting one. Because as a 4-mana Planeswalker, it killing my Branchwalker is annoying, but not actually that bad for me because it won't actually do anything by the time it matters, and I think them killing this is more important than them killing this. That being said, it is a threat that I have to answer. And if they untap and play Vivien, I think the game's pretty much over because I can't beat both of them. So I just have to play this and hope that they don't have Vivien. And they contempt the Reaper. They have 2 cards in hand, so I'm kind of far behind. But at this point, I'm okay with this. If they untap and play Carnage Tyrant, that's 2 of their 3 cards after their draw step. So if I exile Vraska and go to 14, I then am facing 11 damage on board at 10. So I just really have to hope that they don't have a Carnage Tyrant, I guess, and go on with my day. And they don't. This is so good for me. They have 2 cards in hand. They played a Llanowar Elf on like turn 7 or whatever. And they're just not really doing anything. So to me, this means that they probably have a lot of removal in their hand if they're not playing spells. Or they have a Carnage Tyrant that they can't cast. So I think the actual best line is to Chupacabra one of the elves and then play the other elf and hope that they just can't play the Carnage Tyrants in their hand. And I just don't do that. That was probably loose. But they didn't have Contempt anyways, so... Oh, they had a Chupacabra. This is also why that line's kind of loose. Because if they have a removal spell for the Doom Whisperer, I can't really surveil because I'm pretty close to dead. And they hit me for 5, which puts me also pretty close to dead. So I think that was a little loose on my part. I think I should have just chooped one of these and played the elf. Then they would choop the other choop, and I would only take 3, or I could block here at least, and then play the Doom Whisperer afterwards. Luckily, I have this fine Finality, so I can clean everything up. But if they have a good follow-up, I'm kind of sewered. So yeah, that's exactly what happens. They follow up by fine Finalitying back a Wildgrowth Walker, and I think a Chupacabra. So I choop this, play elf, and we're in a decent position. Although they play this card, which I think is kind of unplayable in this matchup, and I break for a turn. They also have Vivien Reid on top of their library. So I'm in a very, very interesting position because they have a raw card advantage engine at 20, which is very easy to answer in the Vivians that I have in my deck. But if I don't draw one, they're just going to draw out of it. And I think that's what happens. I think I just brick off for a while, and they just draw a bunch of cards, almost put themselves dead, but it just doesn't matter because they end up seeing their 3rd Vivien and killing me. In game 3, I'm on the play. This hand's suspect. I don't really want to keep it. I don't think I do. Being on the play, like, even though you have Llanowar Elves, you can't play Llanowar Elves till turn 2, and you have no promise of second land. It's very hard to keep this hand. So I don't think I do. Yeah. I end up mulliganing. I think I miss. And then, see, like, my opponent on the draw kept Memorial to Folly Woodland Cemetery, and I just wish I could have punished them because this is just a super loose sequence. The whole point of being on the draw is that you're going to be the slower of the two, right? So you also just like time walk yourself a turn and not being able to play your spells on curve, and they just play another Woodland Cemetery. I want to be able to hit double green so I can cast 2 spells in a turn, or at least cast this Jadelight Ranger. So although I drew the swamp, I want to make sure that I hit land, and I didn't. I binned the Chupacabra, and I get a little punished here. I do manage to play the other Branchwalker and find a land, so I can hold this up to kill this. But my opponent still has 7 cards in hand. I have 5, and I'm kind of far behind. Now they have a Vivien. I did get lucky and draw this, but not having double green is very frustrating. I want to be able to cast this, or cast this and cast this, and I just can't. I could play this and shove both at Vivien, but they probably won't block. And then if I kill this, I know they have a Carnage Tyrant in their hand, so they'll probably just untap and play that. They actually made an incorrect play also. I just don't think they should have blocked. I think your Vivien taking an additional 3 and not having me draw an additional card is much better than like your Vivien, than me just not drawing a card, right? If I hit a land here, if it was a black or green, an untapped black or green source, which is actually any land in my library, I think I just go from losing the game to almost winning the game on the spot. And I actually drew a dead one because I know they're playing Carnage Tyrant here, and get very punished for my play. And of course, there's the land. It's not a green source either. So I'm just kind of far behind here. I go to 9. They play 2nd Carnage Tyrant and 2 Elves, and the game's over. So from most points of that game, I was behind. My opponent kept a very slow and sketchy one, which almost allowed me to get back in, but I just couldn't pull through. Unfortunately, I lost that match, and we're X1 going into round 9. So I'm on the draw, round 9. My opponent's on white-red aggro, if I remember correctly. I didn't actually know what they were on at this point. And this hand's a little weird, because you can't lead with Memorial to Folly if you want to play Wildgrowth Walker on turn 2. So I have to play Swamp, which is fine. This hand, other than that, is pretty good. This is sort of the thing that you want. The best part about this is that this card plus this card basically invalidates like turns 1 through 3 of this deck of damage. But double Midnight Reaper's pretty bad because they just make their creatures big, and when you get to chump blocking, you take a damage anyways. The card you find has to be really good. This is kind of good for me because I think this is the worst build of this deck. The Mentor turn 2 Boros Challenger version. Simply because they have to have perfect mana, and they have to have a perfect sequence. Like I said, they have double red, 1 white spell, and they cast Snubhorn Sentry on turn 3. You want to be casting things like History of Benalia on turn 3, and they're just not doing that. But unfortunately, up to this point, I've drawn only lands other than this Midnight Reaper, which is not very good in the matchup. And my blocking is not really good. They end up having the 3rd mountain and playing Heroic Reinforcements and really just pushing my face in by turning the City Blessing on and just putting a bunch of cards into play. I have to make a really, really bad block. I think I double block this and take a bunch of damage, and then I just draw another land. I think the only way I would win that game at that point is if I drew a Jadelight Ranger or Llanowar Elves, so I could block, and then draw Jadelight Ranger. But I think I'm just extremely far behind. Even if I block here, take 5, I take 1 here and go to 2. So they have to have literal nothing, and they don't. They have a backup token. I draw Assassin's Trophy and Llanowar Elves, and I am just dead. So for sideboarding in this matchup, let me just pull this up. It's Red-White Mentor. I have 2 Contempts in, 2 Cast Down, 2 Demise, and 2 Brontodon. I take out 2 Carnage Tyrant, 3 Midnight Reaper, 1 Seekers Squire, 1 Vivien, and 1 Ravenous Chupacabra. Like before, I take out the Ravenous Chupacabra because I'm bringing in 2 Contempts and 2 Cast Downs, which is already a lot of removal. And I know these decks rely on cards like Honor Guard to invalidate your ETB effects. So once you already have so many 4-drop removal spells, you don't really need that many. And Ravenous Chupacabra is the worst of the bunch because of Honor Guard. Also doesn't gain life and also doesn't kill a Johnny. So this hand's a little suspect, but because we're on the play, I think it's fine. I have a 3-drop, which is a little slow, but I have 2 removal spells on 4 and 5. The only issue is if my opponent has an Honor Guard, then I'm in a little bit of trouble, so I have to dodge that. And if they do have it, I'll have to wait till turn 4 to Contempt it, and maybe I'll play one of my creatures early so I can kill it. But I do keep... I think this hand's fine. I draw one of the best draws in my deck because I'm incredibly lucky and never punished in Golden Demise. And this just makes almost any play they make invalid. They just put a bunch of creatures into play, and I just don't really care. I'm just going to snap off that 2-for-1. I could get more cards, but I really want to make sure that they can't cast Elephant, and I really want to make sure that this doesn't get close to Ascend, because the moment this gets to Ascend, you're pretty far behind. Also, if they don't play Honor Guard next turn, I can always just Chupacabra it, and if they do play Honor Guard, I can just Contempt the Honor Guard, and I'm still not taking any damage. They play History of Benalia. I draw another very good card in the matchup. Chupacabra the Sentry. I'm very happy with blocking here. This is problematic for me, but not a huge deal. I just Contempt this and just, yep. They Lava Coil the Chupacabra, and all of a sudden, I'm just like extremely far behind. I take 10, go to 7. I'm in this very, very, very precarious position. So I can play Doom Whisperer, and if they have nothing, I go to 1. I can play Jadelight Branchwalker, and if I reveal a land off the Branchwalker, it can't really block. And if I reveal land off Jadelight, it can't really block. If I play Doom Whisperer and they have nothing, I can play Doom Whisperer double creature for the following turn and hope that they also have nothing. If they have a Heroic Reinforcements at any point during this game, I'm probably dead. So I have to dodge, hope they don't have that anyways. So I think I play the Doom Whisperer, though I'm not entirely sure. I might play these two and just hope to get lucky. Yeah. So what did I reveal? I revealed Wildgrowth Walker, which is nice. So I hit Memorial to Folly, Wildgrowth Walker, played Memorial, left Wildgrowth on top. Pass back, double block, go to 4. And this is sort of like where I'm in the same position, right? Really needed them to have nothing, and they have something. So, to me, now I'm priced into making this Doom Whisperer play. And I think this is much better. A much better line for me, but I'm still kind of in a very bad position. Luckily, they play tap land, they pass, they attack with both, and I go to 1. I can't play around anything at this point. So I'm just going to put these two into play and hope they don't have it. Next turn, if they don't have it, I can Memorial back one of these Jadelights, go to 7, and start attacking. This does nothing against me. Can't attack, can't really block. I draw a land, and I'm just going to do the play that I explained. Leave a cast down on top of my library, and I attack for 6. So because I'm at 7, they need to be able to get through with 2 of these. I have a blocker here, so even if they exile this, they can't attack with both. I can cast down one of these, and they have to block, and I can always leave this back the following turn. And I have lethal in play through this anyways, if I attack with everything. So they just lose. I mean, I guess not through here. It's 12 minus 5 is 7. They go to 1, but they have to block everything. So, game 3. I'm on the draw, which is unfortunate, but I mean, this hand's very good. I have a Golden Demise, which is very good in the matchup. Wildgrowth Walker, which is very good. I have another Wrath effect, and I have an answer for Honor Guard, or a Johnny, or a Relia, which I've seen all 3 from them. So I think this is just very promising for me. Drew a Swamp, which is not really what I wanted. I want more of a Explorer creature. This is annoying because it doesn't die to Golden Demise, but for the most part it's fine. Like, I'm just going to block. Them playing this and having the potential to flip this and not having a 3rd land really incentivizes me to play this Golden Demise. It means they probably can't kill this through this, so I can just block here for a while. I can always play this the following turn, or this the following turn if they have a backup of something. So just cast Golden Demise, pass back. I'm at 17. My board's better than theirs. Like, I think it's going to be very hard for me to lose. I reveal this, leave Assassin's Trophy on top. I want an answer to Frenzy. I want an answer to Tribunal. I want an answer to a Johnny. Is basically why I'm doing that. This is a little problematic, although I only go to 15. If I hit one more land, I'm in a very, very, very good position, and they have no cards in hand. So I think my line is to play Vivien, tick up, make them attack Vivien, as long as they don't find another heroic reinforcements, and try to hit land so I can find Finality the following turn. I do go to 13 in that line. I could always Vraska's Contempt the Boros Challenger and just try to beat the tokens on the ground and just try to play a bit of a longer game. I do have an answer to a Johnny, so I don't really have to worry about the Planeswalker thing. And they don't have any more Knights in play, so I'm not worried about this. So I think that's actually what I do end up doing. Yeah, I play this tapped. Then pass. They do rip the 2nd reinforcements, which would have been very bad for me if I didn't leave up Contempt. So I think I passed Derek, read that line pretty well, in that was one of the only cards that basically kills me on the spot if I miss land. I did miss a land, but it's a card I can cast, and it's very good in the matchup. So I can play this, Assassin's Trophy, whatever. I think I actually end up Assassin's Trophying this, and then playing this the following turn. Yep. I just Wrath them. At this point, this game's basically over. I think I play this and Assassin's Trophy this at some point. I drew another Jadelight, and they just scooped from 21. Like, I think there's a way they could have beat me, but I don't really know if there was. And at this, I'm 8-1 in the event. I'm locked for top 8. And yeah, I want to thank everybody for watching up to this point. I hope you all enjoy it. Remember, the sideboard notes will be in the comments of the video, and I hope to see you for the next one.